if you fight 3 times a year, 4 times, 5 times a year, I would feel that you would be rusty. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because the more you fight, the really less you have to train.
Exactly.
Like a wild man. But see, when you have those
Watch
fights,
unless you have to watch your weight. All that.
They become fat camps. They become fat camps. And look, when Michael Nunn,
you're right in that.
When Michael Nunn won his title, it used to be in that era with Buddy McGirt. He'll tell you this: you had to have 30 to 40 fights before you fought for your first world title.
How many did Hagler have?
Hagler fought for his world title in his 50th fight. Didn't win until his 54th.
50th fight, Joe.
Nowadays,
can you believe that?
And nowadays, Mario, what happens is guys get up there 12 to 15 fights, they win a title, then the money elevates, and then all of a sudden at age 23. At 15-0, they become twice-a-year fighters. That's modern day boxing, unfortunately.
Right. It really is a shame, because when you fought over and over again,
second nature
during the year, you're right. It's not a fat camp. You're going from one fight to the next. You don't have to do an 8-week camp. You do a 3-week camp because you were fighting after 3 weeks to a month at most.
It seems counterintuitive because you're leaving money on the table. It's the more you fight, obviously, the more money you're going to. So was like that De La Hoya era the last of his? Was that sort of the last? Because I remember he fought like 5 times.
5 times in 1997.
Right. Was that like sort of the last of the Mohicans during that time?
I'd say probably around that time or thereafter, pretty shortly.
Yeah.
I just think what happens now is the money is so big at the top of the game that it takes a long time to put everything together. It's not like you can throw these pay-per-views together quickly. You have to hype them up. You have to get guys to sign.
Right.
And Joe, another factor.
That's 2-3 times a year maximum.
Exactly. Joe, another factor is, and this is what I argue with people all the time that say, well, it's safer this way if they fight less. And I say, yeah, you're right. What if in between 2 camps, though, they have to spar 175 rounds? Is it really safer? Back in the era when guys were busier, you didn't have to spar them as much, Joe.
This is something that has got me thinking about the setup of boxing now, and how the top fighters only fight sometimes once or twice a year at most. Just like Joe Goosen was saying, it clearly must have an effect on how they will perform come fight night, and will be rusty and put on lackluster performances at times. If you look at some of the top fighters in boxing today, you'll notice that many of them have only fought once this year. The likes of Terence Crawford, Errol Spence, Peter Biev, Deontay Wilder, for example, have only fought once. And even a top middleweight like Jermall Charlo hasn't even fought this whole year. Obviously, boxers tend to fight more frequently at the beginning of their careers and less often as they reach their peak. In the old days of boxing, 10 to 20 times a year sometimes was seen as normal. Sugar Ray Robinson in his debut year as a pro, for example, fought 26 times in 1941. They were simply prize fighters who had to put food on the table. There was no television deals of networks, promoter partnerships, or sponsorships. Fighters would simply get paid to fight, and to get enough, they would have to fight as frequently as possible. Over the years though, this number would slowly start to decline as things like TV came into the homes in the latter half of the 20th century. And obviously things like the internet in the 21st and things like TV promotion and pay-per-view have now become an integral part in combat sports, making a lot of money not just for the networks but also the fighters. Nowadays, the only way fighters can stay sharp and maintain their conditioning is to spar regularly. While it's not the same as an actual fight, sparring still plays an important part in the fighter's training. And with modern boxing, it's important for fighters to still be selective in terms of who they want to fight next, because they need to earn as much money as they possibly can, but also pick the right fights that will give them more opportunities further down the line. Take Floyd Mayweather Jr. for example. He fought at a tremendous pace in his first couple of years as a pro, but after his victory over Oscar De La Hoya, his fight pace significantly slowed down, where instead he targeted higher build fights and fighters, and just like we're seeing today, fought maybe once or twice a year, handpicking many opponents and scheduling the fights to maximise his time at the top and earn him as much money as possible. But there is no one size fits all answer to this, and you have to ask the question, why should boxers fight more than once a year? Well, to help them gain more experience and improve their skill set. Particularly when you're up and coming, you need to gain that experience and learn from each fight, as this in itself will help you become a better fighter. It will also help fighters stay sharp, If they're competing regularly, it'll help condition their body to be ready for the rigors of professional fighting, to be at the highest level. It'll also provide opportunities to help them earn more money, because it will increase their visibility and even build larger fan bases on things like social media, and potentially even help them earn more money. While it also just helps fighters to stay motivated and disciplined, as it helps them to keep engaged in their training and help them avoid some of the vices in life. Look at Tyson Fury, for example, how he struggled with his mental health issues after becoming world champion, as it gives you a purpose and a motivator to get out of bed, knowing that you've got a fight coming up. Now, it's easy to actually say why it will benefit a fighter to fight more often, but there is solutions to this, which I'll discuss, which all do have their pros and cons. Flexible promoters and networks. This is another potential solution for modern boxers to fight more often. It's just the promoters and the networks to be a lot more flexible in terms of working together. The issue is they have to be willing to work together on a fight, even if they have different interests and goals in hand. The most recent example of this working was obviously Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder 2. There was great incentive to whoever won that fight to make even more money. And it was clear they were able to find a common ground to share things like the broadcast rights and pay-per-view share to make it a worthwhile venture. By being more open and flexible, the promoters may be able to help boxers fight more often and provide more exciting competitive matches for fans. Not only that, it will no doubt make more money for everyone. However, this only really tends to work for the super fights, in my opinion, that will generate that type of money. Plus, it might actually delay fights from happening, as promoters and networks need to create time to market and hype up the event to help sell it for things like pay-per-view. More mandatories and eliminators. Now, if you're a boxing fan, you'll know that the major sanctioning bodies can cause absolute havoc within the boxing world at times, sometimes more than the actual boxing promoters and networks. All these bodies have their own rankings, who set up eliminators and mandatories for fighters to move up the table so they can fight for the championship belt. It sounds simple. However, the issue with these major sanctioning bodies, as much as they can help fights happen, is that sometimes they can make it very difficult for champions to secure or even hold their belts, or even a fight that just won't be competitive, or even try to favour their current champion, especially if he brings a lot of eyeballs and money. Because at the end of the day, all these bodies want to do is make as much money as possible and have as many fighters paying fees to their organisation so they can make more money. However, they can come in handy when it comes to things like purse bids and forcing fighters and promoters to come to a deal to fight on a specific network. However, sometimes this doesn't work, as some fighters have exclusive deals with a certain network, and therefore causes even more problems as they try and find loopholes to make a fight happen. Tournaments. The Super 6 World Boxing Classic Tournament and the more recent World Boxing Super Series were great examples of putting together some fantastic fights, but not only for the boxers to win a tournament, but also to win world titles. From a fan's point of view, we're all very familiar with kind of tournament format tables and knockout stages, which also makes it very simple to follow. Personally, I think the World Boxing Super Series did a terrific job with this, and the fact they also created an iconic trophy being named after Muhammad Ali gave the fighters an incentive to compete and win this for legacy, further promotion and opportunities, alongside the prize money. Some of the best fighters in the world, including the likes of Usyk, Inoue and Josh Taylor, thrived off the success of this. The tournaments can be a good way for professional fighters to also fight more often. However, the downsides of a tournament, it can be physically demanding for boxers, and there could be potential injury that could delay a fight. Additionally, some fighters might be tied to a contract, which means they can compete in the tournament, or they might be able to make more money just doing a traditional one-on-one negotiation to create a fight. I also see it as a way, even if you were to lose in this tournament, you can come back and fight in the undercard to fight the other fighters that didn't make it to the next round. Plus, you'd still be earning money, opportunity and visibility. Becoming a free agent. Whether or not boxers should become free agents is a matter of debate. On one hand, being a free agent would allow fighters to choose their own fights and potentially earn more by negotiating their own contracts. This could be especially beneficial for fighters that have not signed with a major promoter and may have difficulty getting higher profile fights. On the other hand, it could also be more difficult for fighters to find fights, as they would be responsible in securing their own opponent in negotiations. A good example of a free agent recently that had much success was obviously Canelo Alvarez, as he quickly was able to snap up all the belts at 168 pounds, being able to fight against the likes of Caleb Plant, a PBC fighter on another network, as he was able to become undisputed. However, as mentioned, being a free agent might only actually be best for those at the top of the sport, as you could very much be put on the B side, as the promoter has their own and their fighters' best interests at heart when it comes to trying to get the best deal. Just see the recent issues Terence Crawford has had making the fight with Spence over the last year. At the end of the day, there is no one-size-fits-all answer for this, on how often a boxer should fight. It depends obviously on a number of factors, including their experience, their conditioning, and their career goals. But one thing is clear, in modern boxing, fighters need to choose and pick their fights that will help benefit them in what they need most at the time, whether that be to make more money or gain more experience or get further opportunities. And however, in my opinion, 3 fights a year or a fight even every 4 to 6 months is realistic for a top fighter in the sport today, which will help him stay at the top of his game without becoming too rusty, while also giving them enough time for their bodies to heal from the trauma of fighting. But at the same time, we also must remember as fans, we don't have to suffer the consequences a fighter must endure. The hard, brutal training camps, the head trauma, the social media hate. Nevertheless, there must be some sort of balance to make this work going forward. Otherwise, boxing fans will look elsewhere, like some have started to do. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Is there any way to make the top boxers fight more often in the year? This has been Jamie from Boxing Life. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.